and welcome to our second part of our rabbits online teaching for owners. So this lecture is going to be on diet. What we're looking at here is looking to see what a normal diet would be of the wild rabbit and how we can ensure that we provide this in adequate amounts and variation in the pet rabbit as well. So this is a lovely picture that the Rabbit Welfare Association and Fund had designed a few years ago, just basing it on the size of your rabbit is to the amounts, just to give you an idea on percentages. You're going to see here though that 80% really should be grasses and hays, with about 10% being veggies and weeds, 5% being healthy treats such as dried weeds or so, and then flowers, and then 5% being healthy pellets. And a good rule of thumb for most pellets would be 25 grams per kilo that your bunny weighs per day. Now you can split that into various amounts throughout the day, as long as your total amount still equates to this 25 grams per kilo per day. Okay. Now, hindgut fermenters is where the rabbit is classed. Now, what this means is, whereas certain animals, like for example, a cow has got multiple aspects of the foregut with larger stomachs, rabbits have actually got an adaptation of the hindgut. Okay, so what we're looking at here, the main fermentation, which breaks down all that fibre, all those nutrients, mainly happens in the hindgut, which is the cecum in rabbits. Now, without going into too much detail about the anatomy, the rabbit would take food in through the mouth, swallow it down after chewing multiple times, then swallows it down into the stomach. It then sits in the stomach and turns over. There's also some fur can be naturally found in the stomach along with water as well. The main nutrients is then absorbed as it goes through the small intestine, and then as it reaches into the cecum, then that's where the main fermentation occurs of the digestible fibre. Now what you have then is, as fibre particles are passed through from the cecum into the lower guts, that first aspect of the lower gut will separate the fibre. The indigestible fibre is passed through, continuing through the colon and out through the rectum as the hard pellets that you generally find from rabbit drop-ins. And that's the indigestible fibre. So the fibre that can't be digested and broken down, which is expelled. The digestible fibre is then passed back from the colon back into the cecum, where it is re-fermentated again and further nutrients are absorbed that way. Okay, we'll come on to the two different types of pellets that rabbits produce in a few moments. So the coprophagic is the second part of the second aspect of the pellets. You have the two types. You have the hard feces that we just talked about, and then you have the softer compressed feces, almost like as if they've been squished together in a sort of small elongated area with several little soft pellets in them. Many owners don't see these because naturally it causes a reflex, so that when it passes through the bottom of the rabbit has a reflex to automatically eat those softer pellets. So we rarely find them. And if you're starting to find multiple ones, then it might indicate that there is an abnormality. And we'll show you some photos shortly which will explain the difference. Remember that the wild diet of a rabbit includes a lot of minerals and vitamins, which is taken from things like weeds and flowers and tree branches, especially the young trees as they're growing. And it will vary with seasons as well. The grass is mainly a dry type grass, close to hay. They will eat fresh grass, of course, as well. But most rabbits, remember that they are European, that it's a slightly drier grass, it's more like a hay type that you would find. Now, in captivity, we have several options we can feed. We do still have the dry options of museum pellets. But the problem with these is they do not provide adequate chewing action with the teeth. So with a pellet, what they do is crunch down along these incisors, from the incisors, the food move back into these back teeth. Okay, so you've got some premolars and molars, which we collectively call the cheek teeth. And they crunch them down and they sort of do a little bit of chewing, and then they swallow the rest of the pellet. Whereas with hay and grass, they have to really chew, and that causes this action like this, where the tooth is moving back and forth between top and bottom, creating a grinding action horizontally. Okay, now that's the action that prevents overgrowth of those back teeth, which is why it is so important to feed them hay and grasses, and that excess pellets will prevent them from grinding the teeth properly. And if you overfeed those pellets, they won't need to eat as much hay and grasses. Okay. Other things to remember is that a pellet versus muesli, there are different complexes inside them. So muesli is an older style of feeding rabbits, and it really is sort of being pushed away now. They're high in starch, high in sugars, and very low in nutrients. These excessive sugars, there is some thought coming through. That's what one of the big problems, causing abnormalities with the cheek teeth. So the cheek teeth grow all their life just like the incisors, and where they grow from is called the lamina. Now, the sugar in the muesli actually can affect this and cause problems with the growth of the teeth. Whereas the pellet, it has got added multivitamins and minerals, so it does have its use, but we need to ensure that we just don't overgrow the amount per day. Also, we can feed alongside hay and pellets is plenty of things like herbs and weeds, fresh vegetables, and occasionally fruit. We say occasionally because it is very high in sugars, and it really should only be given as a rarity. They will eat fruit in the wild, particularly seasons where the blackberries are out, but again, it's not something that they encounter every day. The herbs that we can feed, there's plenty around: basil, coriander, flatleaf parsley, the rosemary. They love everything, and this is really good for a variation and also for the nutrition. Now with hay, there was different types of hays in regards to length of hay. So we've got hays which you can get strands of yay big or further, and they are brilliant for making sure that that rabbit really chews it all the way down. You can also pick up short strands hay, which is suitable, and they still will eat it, but the longer the strand, generally, the more chewing the rabbit has to do. Then we also need to talk about long and short stranded fibre. Now that's not in relation to the hay length, that's in relation to this type of fibre. So we have fibre in things like in fruit, in weeds, so as well, and we need to remember that the fruit is a short fibre complex, whereas things like even inside pellets and the different hays is the long fibre, and it's that long fibre that stimulates the gut motility. So in other words, the longer fibre is what keeps the gut moving through. Okay. Treats. We have many different types of treats out there. We've got honey sticks with lots of seeds on them, dried fruits, etc. Lots of coloured pellets. A question really, why do we need to give these? Okay, what I would say is much better for the rabbit would be to encourage foraging. So that's where we hang food items up, so the rabbit's got to stretch up using its full body length to reach the food, really encouraging them to be mobile and exercise. Using a mental stimulation by using little puzzles, using cardboard tubes, or things like cardboard boxes, empty toilet rolls, egg cartons, and encourage that foraging. And that is far better than it would be to feed the treat. Little honey sticks are very high in sugar. They're not advisable to be feeding at all. And rabbits, you've got to remember, really don't eat cereals. Okay, it's not something that they would eat in the wild. They don't eat cereals. They rarely eat root vegetables, and they only very occasionally eat fruit. Remembering as well that rabbits do require water. They take in anywhere between 75 and 100 mils per kilo per day. So the water should be provided nice, clean and fresh. Rabbits generally drink better from a water bowl. Just remembering to fresh that make that sure that water is fresh every day, especially if outside, to prevent stagnant water building up. So I just want to talk to you about the differences between grasses and your typical pellets. The crude fibre in grass is between 20 to 25%, whereas the averages between the different types of pellets you get out there is much lower at 19 to 22%. Protein slightly higher in grasses and it's slightly lower in your pellets, okay? But importantly, the fat levels in oils is much higher in a pellet than it is naturally found in grass, which means not only are we, if we overfeed pellets, we're causing problems with lack of fibre, with dentation, we're also inducing a fat rate issue, okay? So it's not very common to get diabetes in rabbits, but we get lots of problems with obesity in rabbits, which lead on to other issues such as infections in the feet and arthritis building up early. The ingredients with general rabbit pellets include things from grasses and oats to wheat, soya beans and peas, as well as adding multivitamins. Now, minerals and vitamins are really important to give them that good variation that they would normally find in the wild, okay? Now, importantly, what the grass contains is an indigestible fibre, okay? It's lignocellulose, and this is what stimulates the movement of the gastrointestinal tract. And that movement has a very protective effect against enteritis, so infection within the gut. What we find with the pellets is that there's a big risk if you don't feed hays or grasses in adequate amounts, then you get this chronic intermittent hypermotility of the gastrointestinal tract. So basically, lack of hay and grass causes that gastrointestinal tract to slow down. That causes the digester to be retained for longer, and it will increase things like volatile fatty acids and changes things like the pH and the microflora. That puts the rabbit at risk of chronic intermittent gut stasis and things such as Clostridium overload, which is a nasty bacteria that we really don't want to be having in rabbits. And if there's any breeders listening or pet shop owners listening, this is the big problem with young rabbits that are coming in. They're often overfed those pellets too young, too soon, which increases the risk of diarrhea from the Clostridium, and then onto ileus, where you have gas buildup, and eventually, unfortunately, many of these rabbits will pass away at that very young weaning stage. Again, just a reminder that rabbits do not naturally eat cereals, root, vegetables, or fruit. So why is our diet important? As we've said, many rabbits are sadly still fed the wrong foods, either that they're having the muesli-based dry food or too much of the pellets as well. It will lead to obesity, which will go on to lead further problems. Pododermatitis, which is infection in the feet and inflammation. It can be very sore and debilitating for the rabbit. Cystitis, so infection in the bladder. Potentially diabetes mellitus, liver failure, and of course, as we've mentioned, dental laminar destruction, which is where the teeth grow from, leading to dental diseases and onto abscesses. Very painful and again, very debilitating for the rabbit. We've also have to think about osteoporosis. Now, with osteoporosis, we do have the problem of weakening in the bones. The rabbit's skeleton is only around about 9% and actually of the body weight, and it actually drops in winter a little bit. Now, the bones will start to weaken if they're not fed the correct nutrition as well. So this is what we mean by foraging. Various options here. These here are just yogurt cartons that you get from most supermarket stores. You can fill them with some pellets on this amount for the day, plenty of herbs and most of vegetables. You can also use hanging, the sort of little sock rails that you can get for hanging socks out, and that creates an option for hanging food as well. But avoid the balls. We do have incidences where rabbits come in because they've got their little feet stuck in these, or even their noses as well. So avoid the sort of hanging ball aspect there. Just a little reminder about bird feeders. So these are my 4 rabbits again here. They are free range. And what I generally do is if the bird feeder is empty, then I don't worry. But if the bird feeder has got seeds on it, I move it out the way to avoid the rabbits potentially picking up food as it's goes around the floor or so. Now you've got to be careful with them because they are high in fat, particularly things like the suet feeders, okay? But again, remembering these rabbits can have blockages, and some of the seeds are the perfect size to just block up that foregut there and cause issues. So these are some of the things that clients have brought into me saying that they feed their rabbits. 3 different types of muesli, selective pellets, and 3 different types of treats. And all of this was fed in 1 week between 2 rabbits. Needless to say, these rabbits were quite overweight at the time. 6 months on, the rabbits changed their diet, lost a nice amount of weight, much more active, and the owners realised how much they were previously overfeeding. So these are very big no's, okay? The only one in this picture that is suitable would be this one here, which is one of the pellet varieties. This is a good leaflet that was made by the Rabbit Welfare Association and Fund a few years ago, just highlighting the options you have here. A huge amount of vegetables, all the herbs are suitable, and a lot of wild garden herbs and weeds and flowers there as well. So great things to do are hanging baskets around so that you can pick the flowers that you want and the garden looks pretty as well. And things like large pots that you can, the rabbits can't reach, but again, you can pick them and give them to them as part of their daily diet. Importantly to note, they do mention fruit, but maximum of 2 tablespoons per day. This is generally being brought down now because we do feel that rabbits are being overfed the fruit. So this has been brought down quite a bit, and we sort of say 2 tablespoons a week between them, all okay. So we mentioned the different types of feces. On the left here, we've got the normal feces. This is also normal, but this is the caecotrophs. So the difference here, you've got this round formation of hard rabbit pellet, often light brown in colour to golden brown. When you break it apart, you can see the strands of the fibre in there. Then you've got this soft compressible caecotroph bunch, and they almost look like they've got this softened chocolate drops that have been pushed together, and that's normal, but you shouldn't be seeing them that often. So if you are, then contact your local rabbit savvy vet and have a chat with them, okay? This is called a pearl string necklace of rabbit feces. So this was one of mine that rabbits that I found, and basically this is old feces here, but they linked together with string of fur. Quite typical, you can find this during the change in the coat, spring and late autumn, as the coat's changing from the summer to the winter coat and vice versa. So if you do have long-haired breeds particularly, keep an eye out for these and increase the brushing during those times. We do recommend that rabbits are brushed at least on a weekly basis for the soft, short-coated rabbits, and ideally daily for any longer-coated breeds. Thank you for listening, and I do hope you found some useful information in this dietary talk. And if you like listening to the information and support that we are giving you, then please follow on our other links as well. You can find us on www.originvets.org, Origin Vets on the Facebook page, and also with the Rabbit Welfare Association and Fund YouTube website. Thank you.